What's going on, everybody? It is us people.
I was expecting you to do like it's your boys. I was just
Yeah,
going. I
was.
was getting ready to do
I
the face palm in response, but just continue
nah.
on with this train wreck so we can get this show
Yeah,
on the road.
I would have went there, but I was like, man, that'd be so. Oh God, I would face palm just like internally, but yeah. But yeah, what's going on, everybody? We got another swagalicious episode with you. But before that, you already know the drill. It is your co-host, Jide Odule, with your other dude.
Mitchel Ebner.
Yeah, like I said, we got a great episode for you. I'm just gonna ignore you, but we got a great episode
You're
here.
not gonna be able to ignore me. I know it.
But yeah, this episode it's just gonna be a little buffer, a little something nice to well, I mean, I think it'll be digestible. Something to just have a little fun with, and then we'll kick off our mental health series. Wink, wink, double wink, wink. But yeah, Mitchell, what would you? How about you just take us away? Let's just get right into this bad boy. What do you say?
Yeah, just a little bit of throw in before we do dive head first into this subject. This is going to be something more along my lines. We're going to be talking about how wounds heal today. But our reason for this is probably going to be a little bit more of a casual episode because I figure we want to get a couple of those in before we dive into mental health because that's going to be a little bit more of a serious topic, a little bit more meat in it. So this is likely going to be a bit of a shorter episode, something that you all probably curious about, have want to know the answer to, but haven't been curious enough to Google it, or just have forgotten when you did. So we're going to go into how wounds heal, and stay tuned afterwards. We're going to give you some additional information on how our operations are going, and where else you can connect with us to see some other content that you may be interested in. But we're going to get started. First of all, before we talk about how wounds heal, it's important to note that there are different types of wounds. Some easy ones to recognize are cuts, scrapes, puncture wounds, burns, and broken bones, and potential damage to tendons, ligaments, nerves, blood vessels, lots of different stuff. What we're going to be talking about today is going to be a little bit more on the sides of, a traditional wound, whether it be a cut or a, puncture wound, stuff that you can see, easily recognizable, so you can apply this to any of your kind of daily stuff, where you get a small scratch on your forehead, a paper cut on your thumb, or you accidentally stab yourself with a fork trying to kill a spider. Any and all of the above will be covered in this episode.
Do you have a personal experience with that? Where'd that come from?
Yeah. Okay, well, it's not my experience, but I have read stories before, and I don't know if they're joking or not, of people seeing a spider crawl on their hand, and they're at the dinner table, so they take their nearest weapon, their fork, and try to jam that thing in the spider. They miss the spider, and they have a fork in their hand. And then you have a trip to the ER. But, regardless of the mechanism of injury, we're going to be showing you a little bit of how, after you have that fork in your hand, how exactly that wound is going to heal. So I'm going to come up with a hypothetical scenario other than the fork in the hand, because I feel like it's a little bit ludicrous. So let's get something a little bit more serious, a little bit more realistic. Let's say Jide and I decide to enter into a duel to the death over a certain debate about a certain popular culture show / musical. But instead of pistols, we decide to go with the broad, which is not an official term, but
all right.
And me, being the superior fighter that I am, deliver a swift cut to Jide's left arm, and he yields, and I accept it. But now our dear friend Jide is injured, and he's bleeding from his arm. So,
but would I yield?
Yes, you would. Just jammed a sharp piece of metal right through your flesh. Of course you're going to yield.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense completely.
So anyways, you may be wondering,
Alright.
and maybe it's something you wondered yourself after you got a paper cut or whatever, how exactly is this wound healing works? So most of us know how this first stage goes, and that's blood starts to clot at the wounds. So you have platelets starting to form at the wound site, and this is what we call a positive feedback loop. So as the clot begins to form, it starts to send more messages to your body as more clotting material shows up to send even more until the wound is fully covered. So with a minor wound, this will probably happen within a few minutes or less, and the bleeding will stop. And then after this clot forms, not too much longer after, the blood clots will begin to dry and they'll form a scab. And this is meant to protect the tissues underneath from germs entering it and having to deal with more infection. It's important to note that not all wounds bleed. Burns, that you're unlikely to experience any bleeding. Some puncture wounds, you won't see any. And if you have a pressure sore, those technically usually don't bleed. So once the scab forms, your body's immune system starts to kick in. This is sort of the second stage. And it kicks in to prevent the infection, because when you have that open wound, it presents an opening for germs to come through. So what you're going to see here is sort of, it's not something you'll pay much mind to, but something you probably recognize when you look at a wound. So back to Jide's sword wound on his arm. As he's crying out in pain from the blood. Eventually, it's a shallow wound, nothing too bad. So, within 10 minutes or so, the wound is clotted and the bleeding has stopped. But as time progresses, we start to notice that the skin around his wound becomes a little bit swollen, kind of a reddish or pinkish in color, and it's tender to the touch. And this is because blood vessels around the wound actually start to expand. And this may seem counterintuitive because more blood's pumping through it and has the potential to leave. But the reason for this is that after the wound has sort of closed with that blood clot, that blood that is circulating to the wound is actually bringing oxygen and nutrients to the wound so that it can heal faster. Additionally, as more blood flows to it, the temperature increases. And this is sort of a natural body reaction to infections in general. And many people know this, but it's sort of the thing we kind of all experienced. If you had like a sickness and you're trying to fight it off, your body raises its core temperature so that it's able to create an environment that's harder for foreign pathogens to survive in, bacteria, viruses. Gita, have you seen that one movie? Was it Aliens in the Attic or whatever that movie is called?
Uh, Aliens and the what the?
I think
Oh
that's
my
a no.
goodness! Oh man, I haven't spoken for
I
so
know.
long,
I haven't
Mitchell.
given you
That
much of an opportunity.
voice
You
all
gotta
whacked
throw
up.
some stuff in here. These people want to get put to sleep by me saying all this stuff in one go.
I mean, I I wanted to, but you were on a roll, so I was like, man, let me not mess it up,
Oh, don't worry. You can't stop the pain train. But anyways, this movie, Aliens in the
Oh
Attic,
my gosh.
essentially, it's just kind of what it is. These tiny little green gremlins of aliens kind of invade this household, and they start trying to navigate through it by going through the vents. And these are like teenagers trying to fight them off or whatever. But that's neither here nor there. They come up with this plan to
Right.
turn up the heat in the vents. So that way, if they're calling on the vents, that's going to hurt. It's burning, metal underneath them on their hands and feet, and the air gets really hot. It's a lot harder for them to move around. They want to leave, exit, get out. And it's sort of a similar concept with the body. Now, this won't necessarily force the bacteria out of the body, but it's going to make it a lot harder for them to function. It's going to be easier for white blood cells to get rid of those pathogens that have entered. And that's sort of the rationale behind why your body decides to make you suffer for a little while with that higher temperature. So that's another thing to note, and that's a little bit of the reason why you see that redness and pinkness is because there's more blood in the area, and sort of similar to how when somebody blushes and you see that redness, that's just more blood rushing to that area, and that's why it appears red.
So the blood rushes to that area. Okay, never mind. I'm not going to count.
I don't know where that was going.
I don't. I don't even know where I was trying to go. Like, your cheeks get red. Like, oh yeah, hot in the face. You know what I'm saying?
That's a great point too. When
That's
blood
what I was
rushes
trying
the
to
area, it
go.
seems hot because your blood carries a lot of your warmth, and that's why your face feels hot when it turns red as well. So similar thing in this concept when you get a cut. But
Oh yeah, can I
yeah,
interrupt you
please.
again?
Honestly, I need a break to take a sip of my ice cold water in which the ice is melted because we waited a long time trying to figure out technical difficulties to start this episode. Now we have verbal difficulties as well. But please go on, my friend.
All right. No, I can just imagine, our audience, the viewers just sitting there as you talk about puncture wounds and scabs and cuts and blood and all this cheese and just like screaming like, oh my gosh, like what is going on? But man, and the way you say it, you're so calm. You're just like, well, if you see, this laceration, this cut, this bruise, this scab, this deep wound, it's nothing, the blood just rushes there, it just forms a scab, it just heals, it's no big deal, man. And, just pinkish red, like, whoa, like, okay.
Okay. Well, if the people knew what I did for a job, I think they would understand. But that's a story for another time. That is one
Yeah, oh
rabbit
yeah.
hole of a subject.
Oh yeah, that's what was that? Our second episode, first, whatever you want to call it. That was 1 hour. That story that requires like 3 hours.
Oh gosh.
You need a 3-parter just to unpack all of that
I had
cheese.
an old teacher, G-Day now, was our old debate coach, um, that I should write a book
Oh
about
man.
it.
Oh
Yeah,
really?
he did. But we're getting a
Oh
little
my.
off track, so we're gonna jump back to this.
Yeah, you go on your
Oh gosh,
soliloquy.
I wish it was that elegant. Not quite up to the Shakespearean level yet, but we'll get there. So in the sort of
Okay.
process of trying to clean out pathogens and all that, you may find that G-Day's sword wound here is starting to ooze this kind of clear fluid. And this is sort of the same rationale as to, washing out the wound, because that's exactly what this is doing. It's just washing out any sort of foreign objects that may be there, any pathogens that may still be near the surface, kind of pushes them out. Additionally, those white blood cells will kind of go around, start to fight off different pathogens that may have entered. That's a whole nother process in itself. That'd be fascinating to talk about, but I feel like it also may put people to sleep because it's also relatively technical and scientific, but we love talking about science. We like talking about it in a way that's interesting and is actually useful for you, because differentiating between killer T cells and B cells and antibodies and memory cells, it's just a whole mess of science, and you're gonna feel like you're right in biology class again.
But okay, so there are killer T cells and B
Yeah,
cells, right? So there are killer B cells. Am,
I
am I
don't
hearing that
I
correctly?
don't think there's killer B cells. I mean, they have
Dang
different
it.
functions, and then there's just general cells like phagocytes, which just eat, you know, pathogens. But anyways, that's another topic. A very dry topic. Um,
Yeah, no, I just wanted the killer bee thing so we could tie it back into our B
oh
class,
god,
but
that is another
yeah.
dry topic
Uh,
today. These good people do not want to hear about the. Maybe someone will want to hear about the bees, but not now.
no, no, don't
Oh
tell
gosh,
Sujaya. She'll like
Sujaya is
bring you by
great.
the neck.
Mrs. Boone is great. Really,
Yep.
really great people. I just don't want to talk about bees anymore. If you know what I mean. So much time has been dedicated to bees in my life that I never expected.
You know what? The head, the thorax, and the abdomen. I think I put. Yeah,
And the
I think that's the
Turkish
right order.
sites that are on the
No.
thorax. Actually, it's the abdomen. God.
Yeah.
All right. All
Yeah.
right, all right. So this
Continue.
whole
Continue.
stage of the redness, the swelling, fighting off the infection, all that tends to take about 2 to 5 days, especially for minor wounds. So this next stage is tissue regrowing and rebuilding, and this technically starts relatively quickly after the wound is received, but the process is ongoing, usually over the next 3 weeks or so. And this process includes repairing some of the broken blood vessels, because inevitably, whether it's a bruise, which is essentially just busting up of the capillaries, which are just really small blood vessels, typically in the skin. Well, that's where you see the bruising. And then, but with a cut as well, you're going to cut some blood vessels, maybe just smaller ones, but those blood vessels start be repaired, and new tissue will start to grow where there's that separation in the skin. So this includes red blood cells are helping to create collagen, which is these tough white fibers that kind of form the foundation for this new tissue. And that's sort of what you see is starting to form with that scar tissue. People ever noticed that sort of white lines they may have, where the cut was, where that scar is. This is sort of what that's kind of forming up with it. And the second part of this forming is it fills up with another tissue called granulation tissue, and skin starts to form over this. And as the wound heals, the edges kind of pull inward, and the wound gets smaller and smaller until it's completely closed. And hey, it's funny. Just you've home invader, somebody kicked down your door. Flushed them out with a shotgun. Those are your phagocytes and white blood cells. And now you closed your door again and screwed back on the hinges and installed a ton of new locks. It's
Great
it's
analogy.
well, it's not quite like that. I should say you have another lock put on, but it's not as great, because this is where we get into this last stage of scar tissue. Actually, your skin actually is a little bit more fragile where that scar is. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, because most people think, oh, maybe it's tougher because you don't feel stuff sometimes where a scar is. There's damage to some of the nervous tissue, but actually this tissue that's formed is less flexible, and it's not quite as strong as your regular tissue is. Just due to the nature of the granulation tissue and the collagen that was kind of infused into it. It's not quite as strong as standard tissue. So as you kind of go through the scarring process, GA, after I delivered a swift blow to your arm, just saying, hey, someday we're going to create a dueling video up on the YouTube channel to find folk will want to stay tuned to that, but we'll plug that in later. Exclusive content on the Dapper Minds YouTube. Okay. So now your scar is forming. So as this healing process continues, you may find that scar on your arm, G-Day, is starting to itch. And eventually the scab will fall off once there's enough formation under it. And the area may actually initially look kind of stretched and red versus white and a little bit shiny. And over time, this will start to develop more. So the scar will actually become a little bit smaller. Usually it'll be smaller than the original wound was. And in that process, it just becomes less strong, less flexible than the surrounding skin. So it's actually a weak point in the skin. Yeah, and for deeper wounds too, there is scar tissue that forms, within actual muscle fibers and all that as well. But generally, from the outside perspective, for most minor wounds, you're probably not going to see too much of that. So you're just going to see sort of that external change. And G-Day, as you notice, as the years come and you reflect on that epic duel and how you lost so quickly, just like the pain of it all, the scar will actually begin to fade over time. So for very minor wounds, like the smallest wounds, the time range varies greatly. For some minor wounds, you won't see a scar form really at all. It's just too small, not noticeable. They can take years, though, to fade away, and some may never fade away completely. Generally, all scars will fade to some degree, but depending how big the wound is, it may take a long time, or it just may not fade all the way.
Well, the scar may fade away after some time, but I don't know if my wounded pride will,
The
be
the
completely
emotional
healed.
trauma will just stay with G-Day forever. That one's never going away.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh boy, I can't wait for the dueling video. I'm telling you, I'm a crack shot with a Nerf gun.
Mitchell was wearing his
Oh gosh.
glasses.
Hey, I got new glasses just today. These are my glasses ready to take a precision shot. Just like you
Oh
old
yeah.
Hamilton. But it's getting to the end of this healing process. So just kind of an explanation why scars form. It's because the new tissue that's growing back, it grows back a little bit differently than the original tissue. Because it's not quite like the standard formation of it. It's a little bit of a different process. So if you only injured the top layer of your skin, you probably won't have a scar. Sort of think, I don't know if anybody else has done this before, but at my grandmother's house, she had one of those cushions with like all these little those little pins in it, very thin. And it's something I've done before. It's just my siblings were just messing around, but you can actually push it through that top layer of your skin and not feel anything. It's no nerves. It's, it's just that very thin top layer of skin. So you're not actually really piercing through the skin. You're just kind of like partially going through it. So you won't really feel any pain. And like in those cases, it just kind of heals over. It's those superficial scratches you might get when somebody, scrapes you with their fingernails, or maybe you just bump into a sharp corner. Those will probably not form a scar. But if you have injured a little bit deeper, you're more likely to scar. And usually the deeper the wound, the more likely the scar is. And there's actually another interesting differentiation that should be noted. So some people may scar a little bit differently. Actually, I'm going to take a great example between you and I, G-Day. It seems a little bit strange, but your race may actually play a little bit into how your scars form. So, yeah.
Really?
So there's this interesting thing that can happen with scarring. Instead of just a regular line in your skin or whatever, you may have this sort of thick and a little bit more unsightly of scar called keloids. And this you kind of see sometimes with certain burn wounds as well, but it's sort of that scarring we see where it almost seems like the skin is a little bit raised where it was, and it's a little bit more deformed with it. And interestingly enough, people with darker complexions are more likely to have keloids form. Now, I don't quite know the science behind this. I don't know if it's entirely known yet ourselves, but it's actually something interesting you can see. If you look at old pictures back taken of former slaves that were whipped, actually you can probably see it with those wounds. I don't know if you ever seen those pictures before, but you actually see like the skin is almost bubbled outwards where those scars are. And there's less documentation of white people being whipped, at least during the era of photography and all that. But even in those cases, they're less likely to have those deformations there. And there's more factors that play into it, but it's an interesting difference between people of different complexions.
You want me to say something intriguing?
Gosh, I'm just waiting for like a
No,
good comments, and you're just sitting there.
a
You
good quip.
just kicking back, relaxing, just chilling while I'm spouting science.
Oh my
Don't
gosh!
tell me.
Ignore that.
We can edit
Yeah,
this out if
no,
you want to.
no. There's no way that I don't think
Oh,
there's a way to
Max
edit
is
that.
great with his editing stuff.
True. I didn't expect that. It just popped up with the quickness. But ignore that, people. I don't have a quip, but I think what you said is very interesting. It like I think I missed it, but did you say that's a theory, like
Uh,
the keloid thing, or is that
no,
like
it's
a
not. It's not quite a theory. It's more of something an observation. And as far as I know, there's no known scientific reason for it. I could be wrong. I put time into this research, but I didn't put an inordinate amount of time into this. This is more of a casual episode, but it is an observed difference between people
mm-hmm.
of darker complexion, or not between people of darker complexion, people of different, variety of complexions.
All
Uh,
right,
what? Get
cool.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, busting out the
Oh
sultry
gosh,
voice. We like to hear it.
I'm telling you, this man, he's got me to try to do so many different things with his voice, which you may end up seeing in the future. I should say hearing, but I'll
Oh,
tell.
oh, oh, oh
Well,
yeah.
we're gonna see
I
it at the
mean,
end. At the end of this episode, when you start plugging stuff in,
all
we'll let
right,
the people know what
all
they
right,
have
all
in
right, all
store.
right.
But a
All
little
right,
bit
all
of
right.
some practical advice for all this, because we don't just want to give you neat, and you just kind of move on with your lives. Some practical advice for when you get a wound or stuff like that. Some things you can do to kind of help with that healing process to kind of provide better outcomes for yourself. So for minor wounds, hi mom.
Hey, 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 Mitchell. Hey, so can Max edit that?
I think we're just gonna leave that in.
Oh my gosh,
Okay,
man.
we're
Anyways,
just gonna leave that
see,
in.
yeah, see, my thing's gonna be left in too because yes, but
Gosh.
oh my
Okay.
gosh.
So you guys can't see anything here, but basically how we're doing these recording sessions, we're recording with a little doohickey on our phones, and we have a Zoom call going on as well, so we can see each other. And my mom just walks straight into this and says, "Hi, Jude," and just keeps going. And she does a little jig before exiting the room. Uh,
Oh
Gosh,
my
man,
gosh.
this is just wonderful. Yeah, you know what? We're leaving that in. But get, getting back to
Yep.
wounds, much like the wound of embarrassment,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
minor wounds, you're gonna want to keep some pressure on it. If it's really superficial, first thing you should do, wash it out with soap and water. That'll help get rid of a lot of the pathogens that in there. And if you have any other, foreign objects in there, whether it be like wood, like from a splinter, or maybe some dirt if you fell on the ground, helps get that out of there. And then after that, make sure to cover it with sterile bandage or other dressing. For small stuff, a Band-Aid works just fine. Um, and then if you're experiencing like a fair amount of bleeding and, you're not bleeding out or anything, well, if you are bleeding out, you should do this too. Applying pressure to the wound is an important thing to do as well. If your wound has not stopped bleeding after about 10 minutes, that's generally about the time you should either contact your primary care provider, go to the urgency room or the emergency room, depending on severity, and go get that looked at by a medical
Yeah.
professional.
I mean, just a little example of that, watching Criminal Minds last week, Dr. Reed, he was with that kid who cut himself or whatever, and he was bleeding like crazy. And Dr. Reed, he put that pressure on the kid's arms, his arms that he cut up, and saved his life. Did I just say life? What the heck? Anyways, his life, because he at least like slowed down the the blood flow. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think take what Mitchell just said with some importance, with some take it highly, because it could be a lifesaver, a life changer. You know. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's an
there you
important
go.
thing. Just in general for first aid, somebody's having a significant bleed, direct pressure on that wound. There's a whole lot of other stuff we're probably going to go in either a different episode or maybe a little video series at some point. Talking about practical first aid for all of you out there. If you're interested in being more prepared, just in case, friend, family, or maybe even a stranger, a loved one gets into an accident, or maybe even yourself. Just being prepared for that possibility so you're ready to kick it into action, save some lives. Um, but
Oh
that
yeah,
one will be for another day. Some important things to know. There are some wounds
yeah.
that I think will be relatively obvious to immediately seek out aid for, and that will be things like broken bone, which if you can't immediately feel it, swelling at the site of the break, and having a feeling of nausea is actually a dead giveaway that you have a broken bone. It's a relatively common symptom of a broken bone, or especially a good indicator of that. But beyond that, significant bleeding, a significant wound, a puncture wound where the object's still in, don't pull it out because it's likely putting pressure on different blood vessels. But beyond that, for those minor wounds they have, the paper cut, the minor sword cut to the arm, if you can get one of those, avoid picking at the scab or scratching it, even if it is itchy, because that scab is helping keep germs, bacteria out. And picking at it can actually take it longer to heal and cause more scarring. Additionally, if you have a wound somewhere where, such as your fingers or on your hand where, it'll move a lot, that can actually stop the scab and cause it to take longer to heal. So being cognizant of that, trying to be careful with moving parts like that if you do have a wound there is important. And the last reason as well, to add on to all the others for going to seek medical professionals' help, is if you notice you start having an infection, particularly for a larger wound, and that's when you'll start seeing yellowing of it and pus coming out of it. Those are all signs of infection, as well as like prolonged and intense tenderness around the wound. There are key things to note. There's a lot of other fun scientific things I'm sure we could delve into. I have a lot more information on stuff for practical effects and factors that play into how fast wounds heal, scars developing, all that stuff. But I think we're going to leave it for what we said right now. We don't want to go too deep into this.
Yeah.
I figure we spend some time right now talking a little bit more about the podcast and what's coming up for the future and some other content that you actually might be interested in looking at. Because, well, you may love hearing our voices. Admittedly, sometimes it's nice to see somebody else's face, especially in these times right now with the pandemic
Oh
going
yeah.
on. So, Gide, I want you to kick it off and tell them a little bit about some great opportunities we have for these fine people.
First and foremost, people, you already know the merch and dice. The merchandise. I know this is not content, but it's important to plug, all right? The merchandise. We did a photo shoot yesterday, and I'm just saying yeah. Oh, God, I can't speak.
It was certainly better than Gide's pronunciation right now. To be fair, I've been flopping too.
Yeah,
Continue on, Gide.
will do. The merchandise definitely better than my pronunciation. It is some solid stuff. And our designs, you already know. Our marketing exec, our creative producer manager. He's got 3 titles. Maxwell Moreland. He is our designer. He's the one who makes all of our merch. So please, people, even if you just buy a sticker, you buy a shirt, you buy a freaking fanny pack or some socks. Just go do it. Go buy something. Help not only help supporters, but get yourself some nice merch. Our logo is pretty fire. You know what I'm saying? That little brain with the black. You know what I'm saying? This little bow tie. He's looking quite splendiferous, if I do say so. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. So please look into that. And then the other thing, I mean, you already know the YouTube. We got a YouTube channel going strong. Should I even say how many subscribers we have? Is that even important?
I don't know. We can at the time of recording. I'm pretty sure it's like
Yeah,
13 or something like
we
that.
had a revelation yesterday. Me and Max, we were sitting there and we were talking about, oh, dude, we have 13 subscribers. Oh, people are finding us, and then we were like, wait. So how? Because we have all of our accounts. Yes, yes, Mitchell, you already get it.
It's
Yeah.
important to note that we have most of our personal accounts. Just subscribe to it right now, partially so I can see the feed, and the other part of it is just boost the numbers so more people can actually access it. So I don't know how many accounts Max has subscribed to yourself. I only have one, but I have a feeling it's like around half of the people subscribed to ourselves right now.
I would have to argue it's probably like 95.
Well, you ladies and gentlemen out there can change that if you go and subscribe to it. You may be wondering why you'd want to subscribe to a podcast channel. Well, even though you probably listen to this podcast somewhere else, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, or wherever else you get your podcasts, you can obviously find our podcast episodes all uploaded to YouTube. They'll be uploaded about the same time as on all of these other platforms. But additionally on there, you're going to be able to find some fun little videos that we do just every once in a while. And I'm sure in the future we're going to have a little bit more of an uptick in those. So right now we have our trailer video there. We have a trailer audio available for all of you guys. But I'm sure you're going to love the video a little bit more. It's has that visual appeal to it. Fun little effects, camera shots, and all that.
Yeah.
It's a great, silly little introduction to this thing. And furthermore, you're going to see some other fun stuff come out on there. We have something in the works for a holiday special come December.
Oh, yeah.
And most certainly, as time progresses further and when COVID restrictions start to relax, we get a little bit more of a roll going. You're going to see some other fun little bits and, just G-Day and I and Max just hanging around and having fun and doing silly little things, something that might be a little bit more casual than our podcast is sometimes, and you may find appealing. And like I mentioned before, may even be doing a video series on first aid and practical stuff for those of you who want to take a little bit more of a serious step toward that prevention of serious harm and being prepared for those moments of stress. So please look us up on Dapper Minds at YouTube. Give us a subscribe, and you're gonna start off with one great video on all of our current episodes. And stay tuned for the future because we're gonna have more coming there for sure.
Oh yeah, let me hit the keyword exclusives. I mean, not only do you have the trailer, the episodes, not only will you have the holiday special, but I mean, we're gonna reveal something. The holiday special is would you say the genesis, the beginning? You know what I'm saying? It is the start.
Is it of what I'm? Is it the thinking? What I'm thinking of?
You know what I'm thinking of, but
we're
just we're gonna stay tight-lipped on that. But when the holiday special rolls around, you will know. Mitchell, he's not too much of a fan of it, but me and Max were all for it.
I feel like I'm just being like driven like an ox in the fields right now. It's putting a yoke on me or just driving me through, tilling the ground for your own gain.
You know what? It is pretty lucrative. But not only that, with the exclusives, like Mitchell said, not only the first aid, not only Mitchell's little side thing that he'll do that he doesn't want to do, but also just little fun videos here and there, like our duel. Like our duel. I mean, you can't listen to a duel. That doesn't make sense. You gotta watch the duel. And that's what you're gonna get on the YouTube channel. Just fun little videos here and there. And so please subscribe. But I think that's all we gotta say, right? The YouTube, the merch. Follow us wherever you follow us. Share our episodes, people. I mean, I don't know if you well tell your mom, tell your pop, tell your dog, because your dog might be a dog with a blog, so tell it, or her, and they'll share it out on their blog, and we can reach more people. We can have a larger impact because our goal is not simply to be popular and all that. I feel like that's probably at the bottom to be popular. I feel like the top of our list is what I put in the description, which is to help other people. We want to provide a message. So yeah, please share us. And do you have anything else to add to that, Sir Mitchell the Third?
Yeah, I just want to note, as Jude was saying, we're not doing this to be popular. We want to just, spread some information among the people, kind of encourage a friendly atmosphere, which, can sometimes be in desperate need. I feel like it's always in need, just everywhere around the world. So whether we're only going to have 10 people listening or 10,000, we're going to be making these episodes all the same. We hope you guys continue to enjoy it as we go into the future because, while we enjoy making this episode, it wouldn't be possible without all of you guys out there supporting us. So for those of you who are supporting us from the US of A, Russia, Ireland, Singapore, we have people surprisingly listening all over the world right now. And we thank all of you guys for doing that. It's truly an amazing thing. And I hope you guys continue to support us as we go into our future. And stay tuned for next week as well, where we're going to jump into our mental health series. It'll be a little bit more serious, but I think you guys are going to enjoy it and have a lot of deep content for you guys. So keep coming. And
yeah, I just wanted to interrupt and say I'm so glad Mitchell mentioned the Russia, Singapore. Is it Ireland?
Yeah, Ireland was Ireland, Singapore, Russia. Man, what did we have some people in Germany too?
I don't think so, but yeah, shout out to those viewers. I mean, or listeners. That's pretty cool to say the least. And that was our first episode, our first like 2 episodes. We just like copped on. We're like, whoa, we got people in like foreign countries, and we just started. So
yeah, it's absolutely amazing. So share it with your Russian friends. Share it with your Singaporean. I don't know if that's the actual term for it. Friends or Irish friends, wherever you are. Just share it with your friends. And just go in, subscribe to our YouTube, check out our merch if you want to.
not if they want to, they must, or I'll find
Oh
them.
gosh. All right. This is what I'm talking about. You just using people like oxen, making them till the field. Check out the merch. You don't have to buy anything, but if you find something you like, we'll probably be updating it with more stuff in the future as well as we roll out more episodes. You may find that you like some of the stuff, even if it's just a silly little fanny pack, which I didn't even realize we had, but apparently we do. Know what I'm getting G-Day for Christmas this year. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's all we have for today. Make sure to stay tuned in. We'll probably get another episode out to you all in the next 2 weeks. And I'll see you next time.
Peace out.